Welcome to the True North Dojo. This is the home base for one of Canada's great kickboxing champions, Lethal Lee Mueller. But our story actually today involves his dad, Bob Mueller, otherwise known as Canada's sports artist, and the Emmy Award that Bob won in 2008. See, Bob's an interesting guy, martial artist, one of the very best in the country, but also a legitimate artist for what he does with his skills to create artistic moments out of sport. And I want to talk to you today about the meaning, the real meaning, behind his 2008 Emmy Award when he did a painting of Chicago Bears linebacker Dick Butkus. For too long now, far too many people are focused on outcomes. In this case, the Emmy Award, the notoriety that goes with it. Very few are paying attention to the process. So let's take a look at what Bob has done and think about it in historical retrospect. What no one sees are all the hours and hours of work Bob did to create such magnificent art. And also what no one sees is the fact that he hadn't picked up a paintbrush in 35 years. You see, his father was a military man who thought basically art was for sissies. Well, Bob loved football, loved art, and finally, in his late 40s, he rediscovers his passion for both Dick Butkus and painting, smashes the two together, and then does dozens upon dozens upon dozens of Dick Butkus paintings. Not to sell to anyone, just because he was actually jacked up about doing this kind of art. Fast forward, there was the day when Bob made a fateful decision. He actually wrote a letter to the president of NFL Films at the time, Steve Sabol, to tell him about his quest to meet boyhood hero Dick Butkus and the particular painting that Bob had worked on showcased an event that happened December 13th, 1969 in a game between the Chicago Bears and the Green Bay Packers. The shot was immortalized in a piece that NFL Films had done about Butkus and the monsters of the Midway. Bob Mueller had no idea that his handwritten letter would one day wind up in the hands of the only man out of 7 billion on the planet who just happened to be the cameraman that day that took that iconic footage, some of the most iconic footage ever captured by NFL Films. What are the odds of two artists in different mediums from different countries seeing beauty in the bloody knuckles of Dick Butkus on a rainy day in Chicago? And so what this has me thinking about is the power of several things, not the least of which is serendipity. But probably more than anything, what Nike's been telling us since 1988, just do it, taking the initiative, even if you don't have all the answers. And one of the things that Bob Mueller did so well is, in my view, he actually, at much later in life, made a conscious decision to pick up the brush. Stared at a blank canvas, not really knowing what he was doing, but he picked up the brush and started to paint. In other words, he wasn't focused on the outcome. He wasn't focused on the prize. Pick up the brush is a great metaphor for putting process before the prize and just let the universe, with all of its magical splendor, somehow take over. And that way, one day, you stand on top of a mountain of your own creation. You win your metaphorical Emmy Award, whatever prize that is. It's been said You can't create a legend without a story, and who knows, you might be only one story away from creating your own legend.